Hello everyone, welcome back to Fun Fare for the Common Mom. So the recipe I'm going to be using today is Wilton's Buttercream frosting, and you can find the link to this recipe in the description below. It is the best frosting I have found to use for spreading on the cake and also for piping. You can buy icing at the store, but if you're really wanting to get into making certain shapes and making your cakes nice and smooth looking, I really recommend making your own. Number one, it's cheaper. And number two, you can make it a different consistency. So if you need it a little bit stiffer for some like flowers or roses, you can add a little bit less milk. Or if you need it nice and airy, you can add a little bit more milk. You can whip it for a little bit longer and it smooths onto your cake super easy. So we're gonna use some vegetable shortening, some butter, powdered sugar, milk, and some flavoring, either vanilla extract, or if you want something a little fancier tasting, almond extract makes a really nice icing with this Wilton's Buttercream. All right, so first thing you do, you want to soften up your butter. You don't want it to be liquidy, but at the same time, you want it a little bit softer than it would be if it was just sitting out on the counter. You need it to be able to mix really nicely. So I actually put this in the microwave for about 25 seconds or so, and I am making a double batch of the Wilton's Buttercream today, even though I'm only using it for a creme layer. Always make more icing than you think you're gonna need, because it is great for patching up if you make any mistakes. The more icing you have, the smoother you're gonna be able to get it. And so don't skimp on the icing. It really helps make your cakes have that nice finished look. All right, so this recipe calls for, when you're doing just one, a half a cup of butter, but I am doing a double, so I'm using a whole cup butter. If I were making and doing a cake fully out of this buttercream, I would be making 3 or 4 batches of it, just to give you an idea of how much icing to use. All right, so you've got your butter, you throw it in there, and then we get our shortening. Okay, again, it's calling for a half cup of shortening, but we're doubling it, so we're putting in a whole cup of shortening. So I just squish it into our cup and then even it off on the top and get it out with my finger, because that's just the easiest way to go. Okay, so there's half a cup. Here comes another one. Ooh, I hope we're gonna have enough of this today. Okay. All right, so I've got my mixing paddle on my mixer here. You rarely use the whisk unless you are whipping something, but both for the cake, if you notice when I made it, and for this icing, I'm using this paddle. That's the one that you're gonna use most often if you're using a stand mixer like this. All right, so I got the butter in, I've got the shortening in, and the recipe says that you wanna mix it until fluffy. The main thing you want to make sure is that you don't have a lot of lumps. If you have a lot of lumps in this icing, it will get stuck in your piping bag, and that is really frustrating when you are trying to like do a name or something and you are going around the curve and then there's this stuck and then you squeeze really hard because you think maybe that'll help, and then you get this blob on the top of your cake. So try and make sure there are no lumps in it. This is looking already pretty nice and smooth. Okay, so while that's going around, the next thing you're going to add is the powdered sugar. You're going to alternate between adding the powdered sugar and the milk, kind of back and forth till you get the consistency that you want. All right, so for one recipe of this icing, it calls for 4 cups of powdered sugar. Again, I'm doubling, so I'm going to be doing 8 cups altogether. I told you that I often get my kitchen very messy. This is where it starts. All right, so we've got 1 cup there, and then let's see, total, we're adding 2 tablespoons of milk. So, and that's for one recipe, so I'm actually adding 4 tablespoons of milk. So I'm gonna add 2 cups of sugar, and mix that up a little bit. Remember again, when you put the powdered sugar in, to make sure that you don't turn your mixer on high right away, because it will poof up in your face and you'll lose a lot of your sugar. All right, so now it's looking kind of crumbly. We'll bring it down and grab our tablespoon. And I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of milk and mix it up a little bit again. And then we're gonna do that process again. Then we're going to turn it up. And this is where you want to look at your consistency. How thick do you really need it for what you're going to be doing? Again, things like piping actual roses, like on a pin, you're going to want thicker icing than if you're going to be using it in a piping bag, or if you're just spreading it on top of the cake. Oh, that's looking very nice. All right, I'm going to go ahead and add in our vanilla extract. We add in, for a double recipe, we're doing 2 teaspoons of vanilla. If you're really wanting a bright white icing, they do make a clear vanilla. I'm going to be coloring my icing anyway, so I didn't really care about the brown vanilla today, but that is an option if you need a bright white icing. All right, so this is perfectly nice and smooth. I don't see any major lumps, which is great. So I'm going to go ahead, today I am going to just be using gray icing, which, as I say that, it reminds me of, what's that movie? Steel Magnolias, where they made the armadillo cake, and one of the characters says something like, I don't even want to think about how you make gray icing. Well, I'm going to tell you how to make gray icing today. There are lots of different ways to color icing. You can just use regular food coloring, but that gives you a very limited number of options. So I found this stuff a while ago. It is a gel color that you can use for icing. You can find this at like a craft store, and they've got tons of colors. They're vibrant, and they have a lot more options than just what you can mix with regular food coloring. They do actually make a gray. I don't have any gray, so I'm going to use a little bit of black, and because the icing is pretty much white to begin with, we're just not going to add a ton of black, so that we have a nice gray for our Thor's hammer and for our base. So I'm just going to take this and you just squeeze a little bit of it in there. Again, you always want to start with a little bit. You can always add more, but you can't take it away, so don't overdo it right at first. Okay. So you can kind of see that there. Let the mixer do the work. If you do not need just one color, like if you need lots of colors for your cake, then you can of course do this by hand. Just scoop out the white icing into a bowl and then squirt your color in, mix it up with a spoon, and you can have several different colors off of one thing. Today, I have it easy. I don't have to do that. So I'm going to be using this to go ahead and ice my cakes here in just a minute. So thank you again for tuning in on how to make Wilton's Buttercream frosting. It is the best icing that I have found to be able to cover your cakes. If you're finding these videos helpful and if you like what we're doing, please subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. You can also find us on litanyofsaints.com, and we're on lots of different social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon as well. The links are in the description for this video. So come and find us and see what we have going on other than these videos, and we will see you again soon.